because it is a real thing, and because this is something that affects millions and millions of people, but it's also something that we are in control of. And so I sit here as a health coach and a holistic practitioner, and I think, well, wow, here we now have a definition for something, for a dysfunction that is truly the causal effect of why people can't lose weight. Like, yes, but you still have to fix it, right? You still have to do the work to fix it. And even though there might be some medications that you could take that might expedite the process, there might be some issues with that. And I'm not talking about health issues. I'm just talking about long-term sustainability, what your goal is, from a you don't want to get this condition again viewpoint. So with that being said, I put together a little presentation. Those of you that have been in my presentations before know that I kind of have a style of kind of trying to, I try to use metaphors a lot to try to get a lot of the things explained in a way where it can kind of really make sense. And when it comes to medical jargon, and certainly insulin and fat cells and all of that, it is hard to grasp what's happening. So my little slideshow is short. I think there's only like 20 or so slides. And I'm kind of talking about what insulin is and what insulin resistance truly from a medical standpoint does in your body, how it is created, so that you can understand it, and how you can truly find out if you have it, and if you do, what could you do to solve it, because obviously if anybody has Googled insulin resistance, you're going to see right away that it is tied to diabetes, pre-diabetes, blood sugar issues. And so, it's not just something that is about our weight and getting into a smaller size. It's truly about our health and our wellness. So with that being said, I'm gonna share my screen here, and when we are complete with our little presentation here, I hope to save some time at the end for questions. So let's go. Okay. All right. So are you insulin resistant? And of course, I'm an early bird. Those of you that know me, I'm up at the crack of dawn. And I don't know if it's only early commercials, but that one Golo commercial, it's a supplement. I don't even know what it is, but I just hear Golo, weight loss, and right away it's about the insulin resistance, and you hear people have lost weight, and yes, whatever those people have done certainly has worked for them, but they needed to also add a lot of lifestyle changes along with that. So whether or not you're insulin resistant, knowing for sure that you might be certainly does help you understand perhaps what some of the setbacks are. So first of all, what is insulin? What is insulin? What is it? What's insulin resistance? How do you know you have it, and how do you fix it, right? So many questions. Kind of like what I started the presentation with. It's like my daughter. It's like, I know it has to do with it's not good. So we're gonna lay it all out here, okay? So first of all, insulin is a hormone that's produced by our bodies, right? And it really is, it boils down to you and our bodies not getting being able to regulate our sugars. Okay, so you can see here a healthy person who's taking in the right amount of sugars, their pancreas will be able to kick out the right amount of insulin to offset this off. Okay, that's just a normal functioning body. For many reasons, but main reasons are a lot of them are obesity, lack of activity, just simply being overweight, pre-diabetic, or just poor dietary choices, eating too much sugar, too many starches, are going to put your body at risk of having elevated insulin levels. Okay, so now we have way too much insulin going on in the body. Okay, so when this occurs, the pancreas, as you can see here, is going to have a really hard time keeping up with this. Okay, so when this happens, our bodies are going to automatically go into this mechanism, right, to protect us, where it's going to just shut down. Like, okay, I'm worn out. I still need to work here, right? So I'm gonna just put a lockdown on what I'm allowing in here, right? It's just, you're killing me, Smalls. Ease up on the cookies, no more, right? So now your body's still functioning fine, right? You're not feeling sick. You might not be feeling anything. But meanwhile, because you got this lock going on, you also have insulin kind of floating around in your body, in your bloodstream, because of this lock, right? Not letting, it's kind of this, it's a feedback loop. It's just kind of going round and round and round and round and round and round. Okay, it's temporarily closed. Now, like I said, you might not realize this. In fact, most people don't. But you might feel hungry. So you feel hungry, you feel tired, so you eat. Your body is supposed to make insulin, right? But again, your cells are off now because your pancreas is having a hard time keeping up. You got this feedback loop going on, right? And simply put, when you're resistant to something, it's no different than not listening, right? Not hearing your kids scream anymore, right? It's no different than having the nagging husband or wife, and you just don't hear them anymore. It's just like, all right, it's every day, every day, every day. So you just don't hear it anymore, right? So it's the same thing. You're just taking in so much sugar, so much starch. Your body just can't keep up. It's like they're just not hearing it anymore. Okay. So is that making sense? And so now you might start experiencing these things after some time of your blood starting to build up with that extra insulin. Nothing's really coming off though wrong. If you were to take an A1C, it might show a little elevation. It might even show pre-diabetes. But you also might be feeling some of these things, the weight gain, inability to lose weight, the belly bloat, sugar cravings for sure, fatty liver, brain fog. These are all downstream effects. Well, you can't go anywhere and have a test done for this, right? Like how do you these are symptoms that are daily symptoms that literally everyone has, right? And they really do uh, uh, circulate around your your day and your life, right? You know, I mean, there might be times where your brain fog isn't as bad because of situations that are going on in your world. We have an innate ability to modify and accommodate for what we are unable to do, right? So it's like this innate function that we have. So when our brain fog is bad, we push through it. You know what I mean? Until we can't anymore. And then you identify it as, whoa, I have brain fog, or oh, look, I have high blood pressure. Now you have symptoms. Okay. Now you go to the doctor. Now you possibly do have insulin resistance. And what this is inflammation. Inflammation causes insulin resistance. Well, let me rewind. There's some debate going on. It's unknown. Does insulin resistance cause inflammation, or does inflammation cause insulin resistance? Regardless, they're both unfavorable, right? And so whether it's inflammation that causes the insulin resistance, we then would need to take the inflammation out. If it is insulin resistance that's causing the inflammation, we would need to reduce the insulin to reduce that inflammation, because we do know that the two are related. And as you can see here, these are the effects. These are exactly stress, obesity, overtraining, athletes, marathon runners, and again, you could run a marathon, but make sure you're honoring your rest as well. And overweight, you know, those are all inflammatories. Okay, so now you have this catch-22, right? Inflammation causes insulin resistance causes inflammation. So the argument, right? Does inflammation trigger the insulin, or does insulin trigger the, right? Like I had said, but back to the original, what I haven't told you yet, which is the most detrimental part of this, which is the part that I've been most excited to share tonight, is this increased inflammation, whether it's from insulin resistance, whether it's from just an inflammatory response that you have within your body. What it does is it signals the way that insulin communicates with our cells. Okay, this is an instant change in the way that the signaling occurs. Okay, so too much inflammation will create this pro-inflammatory signal in the enzymes, which disrupts this feedback loop. Remember that feedback loop that I mentioned earlier? And it disrupts our body from making from our bodies being able to process insulin completely. So now to top it off, hang on, to top it off, we have a bigger problem, okay? Because, and this is where my analogy comes in. Imagine now you have all this insulin floating around in your body, okay? This would be like you go into the grocery store, okay? Go to the grocery store, you throw stuff in your cart, okay? You go to pay for it, scanner's broke. So you can't pay for it, right? So you leave all the materials at the grocery store and you leave. Well, this feedback loop that's broke because of the inflammation that you have in your body, That's the same as him not being able to communicate to him to not bring any more supply. So basically now that feedback loop is your body unable to communicate, these enzymes kicking out these circulation of insulin, right? And what they do is they create new fat cells. Like if it wasn't bad enough that this was all happening, now to top it off, the insulin that's circulating, right, has really nowhere to go. So it attaches itself to the fat cell. And it's literally when this happens, it's like putting on a weighted ball and chain. Because now when the insulin is attached to the fat cell, it makes it unable to be broken down. Like fat it burns, you know how we say fat burns. Well, when this happens, can't be burned. Well, it can, it's just very difficult. So I don't geek you out, and so I don't confuse you. I want to quickly tell you about fat. Okay, so that's the point. We want to get rid of fat that's on our body. So fat, triglycerides. Okay, we hear triglycerides in our cholesterol. Well, tri is 3, right? Tri. So think of it that way. Triglycerides are literally 3 fatty acids on a glycerol cell head. Okay, so we need an enzyme for this to break down. When we burn fat, we need this enzyme to attach for this to dissipate and melt. Okay, now if you're insulin resistant, which typically means you have elevated blood sugar or you have all of this extra insulin floating around in your body, what happens is it's called an anti-lipolytic effect. And right away, you know that this is not so bueno, not so good, because anti means not, lipo means fat. So that right there tells you, because basically what that does is it attaches itself to the fat cell, and it makes it so that it can no longer be broken down. So this is where we get that permanent fat, where you just cannot lose it. Okay, that's your number one. That's your number one issue with insulin resistance and why you don't want to get this. Okay, and if you have it, this is why you're probably not losing weight. If you have tried everything and really have stood committed to a program. Okay, so now there's more. I end with good news, don't worry. The next thing is this process also stimulates novolipogenesis. And again, the Greek word novolipogenesis, I broke this down. Novo is new, lipo is fat. Those two words together, new fat, I knew right away what that meant. So here's a little video of actual new fat cells developing. When insulin resistance, when you have insulin resistance, it drives up that genetic expression that will actually stimulate novolipogenesis. It's the formation of new fat cells, because they're floating around. You know, remember that lock back a few slides ago? Nowhere to go. So by listening to all this, And literally here's kind of a nerdy picture of what it would look like. You have your fat cells, you have your enzymes, but as soon as those insulin grasp onto there, it's bound on there, and it's harder to break down. It's not impossible, it's harder. Okay. So now that you understand, wow, okay, so if I have insulin resistance, if I am insulin resistant, if I've gone to the doctor and the doctor has said, you have elevated A1C, your blood sugar is a little high, those are typical red flags. However, there are people that don't feel a thing, and there are people that have perfectly healthy blood sugar levels, but still have issues with the weight. They still cannot lose or shed a single pound. There are people that are classified as obese, and have followed a healthy diet. Pre-diabetics, weight loss resistance. There are lab markers that will identify this as well. And I do have a slide that I do want to share that points this out. And really, as a holistic practitioner now, I'm always asked, well, is there a lab? Is there a lab that'll show me show me what I got? Well, first of all, I as a functional diagnostic practitioner, I don't diagnose. That is not something that's in my scope of practice. I don't diagnose and I don't treat. But what I do is I provide healing opportunities based on your symptoms, based on your correlations to what we see on the labs. So to answer that question, there are labs, and so this is a marker that I'm going to show you of a lab that's showing the DHEA production of this person is off the charts, and you don't need to understand how to interpret this lab to see this. The way that this lab interpretation has been made, you could see that this DHEA production is supposed to be within these 2 stars, and this person's completely out of the range, and that isn't so much the issue. The issue is that these other markers that correspond with this are all in opposing directions. And so without getting into all of the logistics of all of this, these are saliva, cortisol, morning cortisol samples done at home and captured upon awakening. And so, these are things that are identifying certain markers in the metabolized cortisol of the THF and the THE production that narrow down, is it inflammation? Is it more towards insulin resistance, for as far as which direction is it going to go in? And also insulin, if it's insulin pushes the certain DHEA metabolites towards the aldosterone side. And you could see here, again, you're not understanding it, but you could see that the markers correlate. So for this person, if they did come to me and they weren't losing weight and they had all the other symptoms and side effects, with this particular marker, I would 100% know that it was an insulin resistance issue. Okay. So what do you do, right? What do you do if you find out, or if you suspect that you have insulin resistance? That's the biggest piece. Well, that's the hardest piece of all. You could, of course, have a lab run to get the true definition of whether you have it or not. But I can tell you this, that person whose lab you just saw, now that we definitely know has insulin resistance, her protocol would be no different than what her protocol would be had she not run the lab. Because the protocol for inflammation reduction, for weight loss, and for insulin resistance is all pretty much parallel. And that is to follow a balanced diet. And I know a lot of people who have run into the problem of, but I have done that. Nothing has worked. The recommendation would be to do that under the guidance of somebody who can monitor and facilitate all of your food intake. Another big suggestion is those of you that do follow my meal plan, and I'm glancing over at the names. There are some people that aren't. Is to try to avoid grazing in between meals. So I do something in my program called intermittent interval fasting. And with this premise, what we the practice behind this is to avoid picking up bites and nibbles of food in between. And so what this does, if you do have insulin resistance, is, again, think of it as the loud, noisy house that you live in, right? You're needing to create silence. So when you're not eating for that 4 hours in between meals at all, you're building a resistance. Okay. But what we do is if you suspect you're insulin resistant, you should eat your meal and then eat nothing for 4 hours. Really have it be a fast. And that includes, don't pick up a grape, because that's going to spike your insulin level. Again, think of it as that quiet classroom. The quieter you keep it, the more your cells will become free of those insulin, that extra insulin. It's about reducing the insulin in your body. The exercise regimen, reducing the amount of inactivity. And then, of course, looking at just your overall health record. How much sugar are you taking in? If you're somebody that is pre-diabetic. And it's not just what are you taking in right now while you're watching it. It's your overall, because that A1C is your average of 3 months is what they look at. So if you're somebody that goes in and does the finger prick at the doctor's office, and they tell you, oh, you're not within pre-diabetic, but your A1C is within pre-diabetic, that's the one that you want to look at, because that's kind of like the average report card of your 3 months. That's that 10,000 foot view. What you're doing overall, that's your A1C. Okay. So questions on the presentation, questions on insulin resistance, questions on strategies or protocol that you can do or include if you think you have it. I think I should unmute you, huh? And I know this might come up, so I'm going to go ahead and answer it. Are there any supplements that you can take? Well, first off, again, I don't know anything about that Golo that I hear on the TV, but as far as supplements go, the only supplement that you could take that will truly help your blood sugar is nothing. Truly, there's nothing that you could take that'll help your blood sugar. Sorry, I was reading a text message. I got distracted. Now there is a blood sugar medication that has come out. Many of you have heard of it, the omeprazole. It's something that has passed through many insurance companies, and doctors are approving it for blood sugar and also for insulin resistance as well. And it is also getting approved for obesity. Now, I have everything that I have read about it. I have talked to many physicians about it. I've not heard any ill side effects from the omeprazole, but everything that I have seen indicates that you do need to follow a diet. You know, did I say omeprazole? I meant Ozempic. Thank you. It's past my bedtime. Yes, Ozempic. So you do need to follow a diet. You do need to follow a healthy diet that's within your caloric limit. You will lose weight initially if there is a reduction in calories, but your metabolism is just going to respond as anybody else's will. So the bottom line is you still have to learn how to portion. You still have to learn how to keep your blood sugar regulated. You still need to learn how to, balance on the weekends. I mean, it's unfortunately not something that you could take a capsule and, learn the whole process. So any other questions on insulin resistance? You guys are a quiet group tonight. Oh, do I see some chats? Oh, those are just all for me. No other. Oh. So are you guys still muted? I think you're all, hang on. Can you talk now? Oh, there we go. Okay. So the good news though, Chris, the good news is that this is something that you could define, right? Again, not diagnosed, but you could define. And then B, reverse. It's completely reversible. It's kind of like one of those, well, what is she telling us? It's not really anything that you could necessarily, know. Yes, I have insulin resistance. It's harder for me to lose weight. True. Well, but you should still try to fix it, because if you don't, it's going to go into diabetes. Does that make sense?
I have a question.
Mm-hmm. I heard you.
Oh, okay.
Karen,
so some of the diet programs that are out there, for instance, Nutrisystems. Sorry, I have a cold, if you understand me.
I can hear.
They talk about that they have formulated their diets to help with insulin resistance.
Yeah. So basically what that means is, like I have formulated my recipes to combat insulin. Mine are as well. That formula that I have you follow, that lavender, protocol
Yeah.
will, what word did they use?
They said it's just their diets are formulated to combat
Yes. Okay.
insulin
So,
resistance.
so yeah. So basically, my meals on my blog are all formulated to combat insulin resistance as well.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there's nothing different about what
No,
they
no.
do.
I mean, you need to follow um uh the exact protocol that I use, and that is from what the CDC uses, what the American Heart Association uses, and um uh per their protocol, and you could pull this right off of their website. You can go to healthypeople 2030.com, and pull up the CDC, American Heart Association, and Harvard Health. They all use a similar protocol that I use for my program. The only thing different between the three is one of them, and I apologize, I should know this. It was on my exam, but one of them promotes a fully fat-free dairy. The CDC promotes fully fat-free dairy, where Harvard Health says it doesn't have to be fat-free. It could be low fat or fat-free. But they use the exact protocol that I use, and that is exactly how your body will respond to not reducing cholesterol rates, and reducing metabolic syndrome, and diabetes. 100%.
Okay,
The only problem is following it.
right. Well, of course.
I mean, as fabulous as the meals are, I mean, it's still, the lifestyle skill of learning, like, okay, you know what, that yogurt, and I had a call with someone today, um uh who the bottom line was, well, I'm not logging. Well, why aren't you logging? Well, because she didn't want to log what she was eating. And I said, well, right, sound familiar? And I said, okay, well, I literally brought her upstairs in my kitchen. I said, look, here's, and I have it right here because it's still here from 8 hours ago. I said, let's whip this together. And it was like, here's the scoop of yogurt, here's the berries, here's the peanut butter. It took me 3 seconds. And this meal will help combat insulin resistance. I mean, but we think it's a lot of work to do that. You know what I mean? So you also have, the it's lifestyle. You know what I mean? you know,
Would
it's
you would you repeat the part about when you would, if you decided you were not going to eat anything between meals? What was the reason for that again?
I'm sorry, can
What
you,
were you finding?
if I wasn't
Sorry,
going to,
my voice is so bad.
it's okay. You said
What
what was
is
the
what
reason
was
for
the
not,
reason for trying not eating anything between meals?
oh, okay.
Because
So,
you usually recommend a snack.
oh, no, I think you misunderstood. So let me pull up my my screen. So we do, and for those of you that aren't in my program, I do something called intermittent interval fasting. And the reason that I named it this truly was to kind of turn people's heads, because I wanted to get people's attention, like, hello, intermittent fasting. That's a trending word. I'm just going to close all these screens here so I can actually find one that I want. And so since the beginning of my program, I have tried really enforcing, eat your meal, don't eat again for 3 or 4 hours, eat your meal, don't eat again for 3 to 4 hours. Well, people understand that, but we often still will graze, we'll pick at things, right? We'll just like, oh, look, there's a a pretzel, a grape, a cherry tomato. You know, we go in the refrigerator, you know, it's just 10 calories. And it's not the 10 calories that I'm concerned about. What I'm saying is when we eat anything, when we grab anything, whether it's a cherry tomato or a bite of anything, right? That is going to spike your insulin, right? That's food in your body, right? It's stimulating enzymes, it's stimulating activity. Your saliva is moving down into your stomach. Now enzymes are moving, right? Digestive enzymes. There's a lot of activity going on just because you picked up a grape. Okay. And so when that happens, there's a whole downstream effect that goes on that we want to avoid from happening, because when that happens, our bodies, that insulin that's floating around, assuming you're insulin resistance, right? We want to build silence. Do you know why we want silence? Carol, do you know why we want silence?
So your body can renew.
We don't want any ripples in the insulin so that your body gets used to that insulin when you do eat, so that it starts to respond to that again, right? But if you keep giving it like a grape, little wibbles of insulin, it's never going to build up that resistance again. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Uh,
Or are you not understanding?
no, I think I am, but does everybody have a screen that says continue in a new Chrome profile?
Are you not seeing the right screen?
I don't think so.
Okay, hang on. Okay.
There we go.
Okay. So basically what I need, what I basically, the message I'm trying to send is because we're trying to build, we're trying to get your body to recognize the insulin again, you know, we're trying to unlock that lock, right? Not eating at all in between your meals here, doing that fasting is going to create that. Okay. So eating at your meal, not eating for 3 to 4 hours, and then eating at your meal only is going to help with the insulin resistance. Okay,
Okay.
it's because of the fact that you're not letting any insulin in your body for like 4 hours. Your body's not used to that. Your body's like, whoa, where'd the insulin go? Like, Carol, what did you do with all the insulin, right? It's going to really start going, what is going on? She's really not giving me anything. And it's going to start responding. Do you get it now?
Yes. Yes, I do.
It's just so used to you being like, oh, here's a jelly bean, here's a, you know, so we're really kind of building up that resistance. So I do want you to still have snacks, but when I say snack, I mean a mini meal. I want you to eat and then eat again in 3 or 4 hours, but have it be a meal, not just 3 bites of a cracker and cheese, because then eventually at the end of the day, you're going to end up eating too much. And then that builds up that resistance.
Got it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a hard concept to understand, but I'll leave you with this because I've done this before. Let me get my little plant here. So I've done this little demonstration before with my little plant. Okay. So this is the plant. Okay. Imagine the plant needs to be fed the same amount every single day, right? So what we do though is we feed it, and then we don't feed it, right? We hold on until the end of the day, and then we dump in so much that it overflows. So that overflow, think of all that overflow, is that all that insulin overflow is dumped over. Whatever doesn't fit in this pot that gets flowed over is excess fat. And those fat cells are the ones that have the extra weight on them and are harder to burn because of the enzymes. Okay, so basically, if you do have insulin resistance, or if you don't have insulin resistance, regardless, the way to combat it is to follow a balanced diet. So regardless, okay. So if that answered your question, Carol. Are you guys muted again? Hello?
We were, but we can
Okay.
unmute.
Okay, perfect. All right, any other questions?
Is there, so I know that exercise and eating right are the best ways to reverse this. Is there a like an amount of exercise that we should be targeting? I know 30 minutes, 5 days a week or whatever, but like, is there a specific goal related to kind of this insulin resistance or reversing insulin resistance that we should be targeting, or better types of exercise maybe?
No, it does depend. It depends. It varies from person to person, but depending on each case, because a lot of this is also tied to stress levels. Your DHEA and your insulin it does correspond to your cortisol levels. Your cortisol levels do have an impact on your blood sugar levels. So, a lot of that is all very tied together. So, depending on the person, if it's a stressor, I would tell them to break up their workouts into, mini workouts to alleviate that stress, which would then, in a sense, bring down their cortisol levels and bring up their DHEA. It can get very, very technical on how I would prescribe the exercise. So, it's not as black and white as, work out 4.5 hours a day and do some strength work. I look at it more from like a clinical standpoint of, all right, well, these are your stressors. Are you a stressed out person? Do you like to exercise? Because if it's somebody that doesn't like to exercise and then I'm asking them to exercise, there goes their stress, right? So in that case, I would come up with some other type of movement that they could incorporate, whether it's 3 or 4 times a week, that might not be so exercise prescribed, but just some sort of movement to get their levels down. So, it could really just be all over the place. But it's fascinating how that would make such a huge difference. And, I go back to my popsicle sticks, they're all over the place in my office here, but, setting those little reminders, if you are somebody that, that feels like, okay, look, I'm pretty sure based on this presentation, that I could be somebody that might be insulin resistant. I don't want to do the labs. I don't want to go back to the doctor and have them tell me the same thing. I'm gonna really hit this protocol up. I'm gonna going to follow the balanced diet. I'm going to do the intermittent interval fasting where I keep the food intake down. Set these little visual reminders up for you to make sure you're consistent, because that's the other piece, as Lisa. We'll say, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this for, the exercise and the diet, and we'll do it for a week or two, and we don't see the results. And so then we just kind of kick it to the curb, where something like this, you're going to start feeling better. You're going to start seeing some changes on the scale, but remember, you're insulin resistant, so the scale's not going to move. You got to give your body time for those cells to unlock, and those enzymes
It's 7
to do
o'clock.
their trick before you really start to see the difference. So using those reminders to keep you moving is a huge thing. But yeah, great question.
Thank you.
Hope I answered it.
You did.
Any other questions? Awesome. And then, on final note, the last thing too, because I know that this is commonly asked, is bedtime. It is okay to have a snack before bedtime, as long as it's not something that's high in sugar, but kind of being mindful too of what your bedtime was. And then considering that also a time of fasting. You have your bedtime snack. And, for those of you that are in my program, that doesn't mean your dinner. That means your dinner. And then if you're going to have a bedtime snack, your bedtime snack. But then there's that fast until that breakfast. And so that, sorry, my dog's just eating I have dishes all over the place. So that means no bites of, peanuts on the way to bed, or no, because that's that insulin that we want to create that resistance on, so being really mindful about those things, I think, are going to all make a huge difference. So, okay. Well, thanks you guys for joining, and I look forward to seeing more of you guys in the spring here. I'll be doing some more fun topics coming up. So have a good rest of the night.
Thanks, Irene.
Bye, you guys.